round off the edges. Then take the brightness down -15 and the contrast down -20. Now create white strips, again using the same technique as before, and use vertical motion blurs to blur the highlights like that. Oh, and don't forget to do another central highlight. Now on a separate layer, do filter render clouds with red and cyan, and you know the rest. We still need to give it the brush steel effect though, so go through the same process as before. It's not anything new, at least not yet. If you want something new, well, how about this? We'll give the pommel a decorative logo. Fill a rectangular marquee with black on another layer. You don't need to make it a specific size, just roughly about that big. Then on another layer, fill an elliptical marquee with gray. Copy that layer, move down and merge. Copy the layer again, rotate 90 degrees and merge down. Then copy the layer again and rotate 45 degrees, but don't merge down. Instead, convert it to the difference layer. Then hide all but the rectangle and ovals. Select black color range, copy, merge, and paste. And of course, delete the rectangle and ovals because you won't need them now. Put the logo there, select Modify Contract, and erase the lower portion with the semi-transparent no hardness eraser. You may need to blur the edges as well. If so, do that before contracting the selection and erasing. You may also want to darken the pommel near the bottom a bit. Put the logo beneath the color and steel effect layers, merge them all together, and rotate the pommel 2.5 degrees and put at the end of the handle. Now there's just one part left to be made, the handle guard. Control plus N, 0.75 by 4.375 inches. Fill with black, drag and drop. Now make a copy of this layer and hide it, otherwise you'll have to make it over again like before. Then for the one still visible, go to Filter, Distort, Shear, and make it like that. Then unhide the other and use the polygonal lasso tool to make it into a triangle. Make a copy of the triangle and hide it. Then go to Filter, Distort, Shear again and give the first triangle a curve like that. Then unhide the other triangle and Filter, Distort, Shear roughly with the opposite curve as the first. Then position them both like that. All three pieces of the guard are 4.375 inches in length. But when we zoom out, it's easy to see that the guard is too wide. The curve of the spikes adds extra width to it. So leave the spikes as they are, but transform the other piece so it's 80% of its original height, or 3.5 inches. There, now that looks much better. Merge the pieces together, then use an inverted circular marquee to round off the outside and inside edges. They may not line up perfectly, but you can use an eraser to smooth the transitions. Rotate the guard 2 degrees, then Control Select and contract the selection 5 pixels. Fill with white on a separate layer, then contract another 5 pixels and delete, leaving a strip of white along the inside. Gaussian blur the strip, Control Select the guard base layer, and on another layer fill with white, and inverse the selection. This is going to be the central highlight. If we contract it as it is, the central highlight wouldn't come anywhere near the points, so it's necessary to delete around it manually. Hold down Shift and press the right arrow key 5 times and delete. Then press the left arrow key 10 times, still holding Shift, and delete. Do the same thing with the up and down arrows, but 3 times instead of 5, and use the eraser for the outer edges. Now for the inner edges, Control Select the guard base layer again, then Shift plus arrow 3 up and 2 left, and erase along the bottom edge of the top spike selection. Then Shift plus arrow 6 down and erase along the top edge of the bottom spike selection. Then round it off at the edges again and move the highlight left slightly. Make a copy, blur it 40 pixels, and use a no hardness eraser to erase the lower edges, both on the central and edge highlights. That would be shaded and thus darker. Again, I'm skipping details to save time, but just work at it until it looks something like that. Another dissolve layer, copy, merge only that, and blur vertically 145 pixels to give the guard's brush steel effect. Get rid of what you don't need, copy, invert, put behind, and nudge over. Then Control Select the guard, inverse, and delete the outside on the motion blur layer. Take its opacity down, and again, like before, use difference clouds on another layer to colorize it. You may decide later that you left the colors too saturated on the blade, pommel, and guard, in which case you can simply hit Control plus U for hue saturation and take the saturation down until you're satisfied. Finally, the Odachi is finished. much more involved than the first sword. It's one thing to make a sword with Photoshop, but it's a lot more time consuming to do that and make a tutorial for how to make that sword. I know I didn't go into detail about everything, and I'm sorry about that, but this video is already longer than I'd intended for it to be. I had a basic idea of how I was going to make the sword, but a lot of it was unplanned, which is why it took so long to review everything I did. When I get around to doing an advanced sword design, I'll plan it better so the video isn't so long. But that probably won't be for another half year, maybe more. So until then, practice, and get Illustrator if you don't have it already, because the next tutorial will probably involve scanning and pin tooling a drawn sword, then taking it into Photoshop and giving it fine details. Well, that's all for now. So until next time, adios.